everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Grace. I'm just a 24-year-old gal trying to figure her life out. If you are new, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications to be notified when I post new videos. Today's video, I am in a new location and I'm also in front of my bookshelf. I did move. I am officially living in New York City, and I'm going to talk today about the books that I read in 2020. I've not posted in quite some time, so new videos are coming, don't you worry. I want to do this in chronological order and how I read them throughout the year, so I'm going to pull up my Goodreads. If you want to follow me on Goodreads, feel free to do that. It's just Grace Elizabeth Barrett, the same as all of my other social media. Okay, so I read 23 books this year. My goal was originally to read one book a month, and then I quickly surpassed that, so I decided to aim for 20. Good stretch, Coop. He's up on the couch, you can't see him, but I ended up reading 23 books. The first book I read this year was Wired to Create: Unraveling the Mysteries of the Creative Mind. The rating that I gave it was a 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really interesting. It's very science-based creativity, so if you're not interested in that, definitely don't read it. I personally really love research, especially in terms of like just our brains in general. Material Girl, Mystical World, The Now Age Guide to a High Vibe Life, 2 stars. I had a very high expectation for this book. I thought it was going to be really good. It wasn't terrible, but it just like wasn't what I was looking for, or the premise was different than what I got from the book personally. So yeah, not my favorite book, but a fun cover. Limitless Mind by Jo Boaler. I gave this book 4 stars. Really enjoyed this book. This is about learning, leading, and living without barriers. Another scientific based book, basically the elasticity of our brain, so how you can learn much more than you think that you can learn. About when you were a kid and you thought, oh, like for me personally, I'm not good at art, so I'm not even going to try. It's really interesting, a lot of really cool things in here. Next up we have Braving the Wilderness by Brené Brown. I always want to say her name as Breen for some reason. Anyone else? But this book is The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone. 3 stars. It wasn't like revolutionary for me. Brené Brown's awesome. I really love her work. I really like her writing style. It's a really good mix of science, but also making it digestible for someone who's maybe not into reading like in a research type writing manner. What do we got next, Coop? Next up, we have Finding Ultra, Rejecting Middle Age, Becoming One of the World's Fittest Men, and Discovering Myself by Rich Roll. I gave this book 4 stars. At the time I was reading this, I was training for the New York Marathon, and then it got canceled because of COVID. We love 2020. Even if you're not a runner or don't ever plan on being a runner, it's a very inspiring story. Basically, Rich Roll was an alcoholic, turned his whole life around, and obviously, if you guys don't know who he is an ultra endurance athlete. So he's done Ironman, he's done all these really crazy challenges in terms of fitness. So especially if you're training for any sort of running endeavor. Untethered Soul: The Journey Beyond Yourself by Michael A. Singer. This took me so long to read, a month and a day to read this book, because I kept getting kind of stuck because it was very heady. You have to be in the right mindset to read it, because if you're not, it's just gonna fly right over your head. 4 stars. Again, thought it was a bit heady, but a really interesting perspective is what I wrote in my Goodreads review. The next book I read was Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. There is a Hulu series about it, which I still haven't even seen. 3 stars. I personally thought it was overhyped. I didn't think it was a bad book, but I personally felt like it was really smashed in like the last third of the book. The next book I read was called The Worry Trick: How Your Brain Tricks You into Expecting the Worst and What You Can Do About It by David A. Carbonell. I think 2 or 3 stars. 2 stars. Basically, my thoughts on the book were, it's interesting as a concept because I personally have struggled with anxiety for the majority of my life. The only issue I had with this book was that it was so repetitive. It felt like I was reading the same thing over and over and over again in terms of the solution. The next book I read was The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration and the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. Ooh, y'all, this book, 4 stars. Such a well-written book. The way that it's written is so digestible, and it doesn't feel like, again, being bogged down by research or by these big concepts. She really does a great job of breaking things down in a way that is easy to understand in a story format, you know, chronological in terms of slavery and civil rights and then up to the present and police brutality. 10 out of 10 would recommend if you're looking for something in terms of the anti-racism, like, book reading list. This is such a great option. It's so informative. I also have an entire post on my Instagram about quotes that I pulled from this if you want to check that out. The initial picture is just a picture of the book, so you can definitely find that easily on my Instagram. The next book is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, 5 stars. I think I finished it in like 3 days or something. First of all, the cover is just absolutely gorgeous. This book was so good. Twists and the turns and just the characters. You can be, you know, twins and then live such separate lives and have this tie and this connection. The only downside to this book was that I didn't love the ending. It was like a non-ending for me. Otherwise, it was so good. Really, really loved it. And again, the cover is just fantastic. The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I gave it 3 stars. A fantasy novel, which I don't normally read, all about New York City, so funny enough, now I live here. But it was really good, really interesting, moved really quick, which I enjoy. I think that's when you know a story's good, when you're getting through a lot of it because you're so invested in the story and the characters. Next up, y'all, okay, was Where the Crawdads Sang. This book I gave 5 stars. This was probably, I'd say, a tie for my favorite book of 2020. I'll tell you what the other one is in a little bit, but this book I read it in 2 days, and oh my gosh, it was so freaking good. And this is like the one book I recommend for everybody now because it's such like a heartwarming but also heartbreaking book. Like, it was just so cute. Ugh, it was just so good. I did cry at the end of the book, so definitely recommend this one. The next book I read was The Alchemist. Gave this book 2 stars. I did not love it at all. It felt very repetitive to me, like it was the same thing in every place that he went, and it just wasn't like, I don't know, it just like wasn't great for me personally. So the next book I read was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. 4 stars. Really, really love this book. Also, the cover is absolutely stunning. I was not expecting the ending at all. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. The Kiss Quotient. I finished this book in 2 days and I gave it 5 stars. It was very steamy. It's a romance, obviously, if you couldn't tell by the title. It's really good. Again, very steamy, so if you're not looking for that, don't read this book. But if you are looking for a little steamy romance action, definitely check this one out. Next up, we have The Black Flamingo. This book in a day. It's written in poem format. 4 stars. A lot of emotion is powered through the poems. I've never read a book like this where it's poems but that essentially tell the story over time. It covers everything from race, sexuality, gender, a lot of really, really great topics in here, so definitely check it out if you're interested in that. And also, again, cover just absolutely stunning. The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This book took me forever to read. I can tell you I was not expecting the end of this book. I could not have predicted it if I tried. 4 stars. For something that I wouldn't normally pick up, I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's really interesting, the duality of the character, the main character who is a child psychologist, but also cannot leave her house, like spying on her neighbors, and then she sees something that she shouldn't see, and then this whole thing ensues. You don't know the whole time if what she saw happened or if it didn't, if she imagined it, and if she's been drinking too much and mixing medications with alcohol. And it's really, really good. I definitely recommend if you are interested in thrillers, or if you're looking to kind of branch out into that genre. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So I gave this book 5 stars. Like enemies to lovers, you will enjoy this book. Recommend if you're looking for a little bit of a steamier romance. It's not super steamy, but there are some steamy moments for sure. So next up, I read another romance, which is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I read it in 2 days. Also a very good romance. Quite a bit of steam as well. Again, this is another enemies to lovers book as well. So funny enough, like just reading those back to back. But this flew by. Romances usually I read very quickly. Really cute, really sweet, really frustrating and annoying at times because you're like, why don't you see it, you know? I gave The Unhoneymooners 4 stars. Between the World and Me, I gave 4 stars. It's so powerful. His words are so impactful and so filled with love. He's writing a letter to his son, I believe. And you can tell that there's so much love and also pain and hurt that he's writing. The place that he's writing from is filled with that emotion. The next book I read was Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. I gave this book 3 stars. An interesting story, but I personally wasn't drawn in. Also, like it flashes back and forward a lot, which I don't love in books because it can be really confusing. At the beginning of each of those switches, I really had to like jog my memory about where we left off in the past and then like picking up from that point. So that's the only downside of this book, but otherwise it's a really quick read. I think I finished it in a day, so pretty quick on that one. But 2 books that were tied for first. This is the other one, and it is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I gave this 5 stars, obviously, and I read this in literally 1 sitting. Oh my gosh, was this book good. I was blown away by this book. I don't even think I have anything to say about it because it was so good. Obviously heartbreaking because of the nature and the setting of this book being Auschwitz, and the time period just heartbreaking in itself, but seeing the story progress and the love progress and their situations progressing throughout is incredible and moving and just so good. So literally go pick this book up. It's amazing. So the last book I read this year was So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson. I gave this book 3 stars. I finished it yesterday. Was not my favorite book. Really interesting topic about being publicly shamed in terms of not like the old ways, but on like social media and stuff. Really interesting concept. If you're interested in that and how people recover from being shamed on Twitter and on Facebook and whatever, live, whatever it might be, definitely check it out, but not my all-time favorite book. Those are all the books I read this year. Let me know what your favorite book was that you read this year. And if you didn't read any books this year, what book do you hope to read in 2021? Also leave any book recommendations that you think I should read in 2021 below. Thanks for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're not already. Love you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.